Should I be thinking about rebranding my business? I got this question from a client that I've been working with for a while on the bold day of content side of things. So we're doing content marketing. Her website needs a lot of work. She knows that. And really, her website needs to be redesigned. But in the process, she's thinking about, is it time to rebrand? So today, I want to address this question. When is it time to rebrand? What does rebranding actually mean? And what's the best way to go about this? Let's dive in. Hey, beautiful human, and welcome to the Bold Women in Business Summer Series, where we're going for fast, fierce clarity so you can get back to your busy summer plans. I'm your host, Rachel Honeyman, founder of Honey Be Bold, and in 15 minutes or less, I'm going to answer one game-changing question to help you brand smarter, market bolder, and connect deeper. Go grab your floaties and let's dive in. Let's start with the question, what is a rebrand? It's not just a new logo. This is a common misconception. People think, I don't like my logo. I want a new logo. So they go to Fiverr and they hire someone to make them a new logo. And ultimately, what winds up happening is they wind up in the same spot a year later or 6 months later or 2 years later, where they just are saying, this doesn't feel like me. And so they go through this process again, right? They go and get a new logo. This is not rebranding. Getting a new logo is not rebranding, because rebranding is not just about your visuals. It's your whole picture. It is the whole experience of your brand. It is your strategy, your messaging, your positioning, and the visuals should be a representation of all of that. When you go through a rebrand, it's really about realignment, getting your external brand back in sync with who you are, or in sync for the first time, right? Many people launch a brand and they haven't really gone through the process of figuring out who they are and what they do and who they serve. They haven't built this deep understanding of what their brand is to begin with. So their brand naturally feels out of alignment. So this is really about finding alignment, whether it is realigning to where you are now versus where you were, let's say 5 years ago, or finding alignment to begin with. A rebrand can be subtle, or it can be a sweeping change. So let's go through the 6 signs it might be time to rebrand. Number 1, you've outgrown your current brand. What maybe once upon a time felt like a really good fit now feels small or outdated, or it just is off. It just hasn't grown with where you are as a brand now. Your services, prices, audience, whatever have evolved, but your brand hasn't caught up. You're still kind of stuck in the past. Number 2, you are attracting the wrong people. You might even be attracting a lot of people. You might have a full inbox of people who are interested in your services, but those inquiries aren't aligned. You're constantly explaining your value to people, or you're repelling your dream clients with the wrong tone or look. You just aren't finding alignment. You're not attracting the right people, whether that means that you're just not attracting enough people or the right people. Something is not screaming to your dream clients, you should be working with me. Number 3, and this is a big one. I actually spoke with someone this week who shared this with me. You cringe when people ask for your website. So if your brand and website are not something that you're proud to share, that is a huge red flag. There can be problems with your website, right? Like no website is perfect, and websites are evolving, ever evolving. They should be. There are things about my website that I would love to take the time and fix. But the overall experience of your website must be something that you feel proud of, that you feel is a beautiful reflection of your brand. And what often happens is that the brand and website kind of exist as almost 2 separate entities, or there just isn't a clear brand to begin with. So the website, of course, can't reflect that effectively. Your brand and your website should feel like an invitation. I always describe your website as the welcome mat for your business. And so it should be the perfect representation of your brand, and your brand needs to be super clear and consistent and a perfect reflection of what you offer, who you are, and who you want to serve. And so if none of those things are feeling aligned, or if any of those things are feeling misaligned, it's time to find alignment, right? Which is what a rebrand is for. Number 4 is you are shifting your business model or your audience. You have maybe new offers, a new niche, or a new direction. Your brand needs to evolve too. So this client that I mentioned at the beginning who asked this question, should I be thinking about rebranding? Is it crazy to be thinking about rebranding? She's someone who has a really, really strong brand, and she's concerned about giving up that brand equity. But her business has shifted in such a big way, and the types of clients she wants to work with have shifted in such a big way that it's almost a no-brainer. Rebranding is what is needed in order to step into this new reality as a business. Branding is really at its core about clarity, and clarity is so critical during transitions. And it is a way of kind of putting your stake in the ground and saying, this is who I am, this is who I serve, and this is how I serve them. And so if that has shifted, you need your brand to show up to allow you to be clear in that transition. Number 5, your visuals and messaging just don't match the experience that you provide. So you might be offering, high ticket, luxe, or wildly creative services. This is like who you want to be and how you want to show up for your clients, but your brand feels DIY, it feels generic, it feels outdated, it feels unprofessional. And that disconnect can really be costing you trust, bookings, and confidence, right? If people are getting a different experience from speaking to you or working with you than they get from your overall brand, it's going to cause this confusion. And that's really what a total brand architecture needs to do, is it needs to create a feeling of consistency, a feeling of expectation, right? Really meeting expectations and showing up in a way that continues to engender trust in your audience. Number 6, you just feel disconnected from your brand. Sometimes it's a gut thing. You look at your brand and you just say, this isn't me. It's not me anymore, or maybe it never was me. A lot of times your brand can feel like this very disconnected part of yourself. I have another client who had created a brand that felt very professional, very corporate, because she wanted to attract corporate clients, because she had this idea that those were going to be the higher paying clients. And that's what she wanted to convey, right? I am a professional person who can hang with the corporate bigwigs, right? But what wound up happening is that she felt so disconnected from that brand that it was obvious. It really was. I kind of looked at what she was putting out there and her brand and who she is and what she stands for. And I said, these do not connect. These are two different entities. And her passion for her brand really didn't come through because it didn't feel like her. And so we went through the process of rebranding her as the quirky creative that she is, because that's really what's going to connect with the clients that she wants to work with, the clients that are going to really appreciate that side of her. And so that disconnect is super important to pay attention to. When is it not time to rebrand? A lot of people think that a rebrand is the answer, always. But it's not always the answer. So when is it not time to rebrand? You're bored, right? Your brand is doing its job. Things are moving along. You're attracting clients, all of that. But sometimes as business owners, for lack of a better word, we do crave some amount of tension, because it's part of what draws us to entrepreneurship, is that there's this struggle that's embedded in entrepreneurship. And that can be really stressful. But when things are in kind of a holding pattern, it can feel like our creative energy isn't being used effectively, or like we're just going through the motions. So to me, that's a time to look at some other parts of your business or some other parts of your life. It's not necessarily a time to rebrand. If you're not clear on your direction as a brand, if you're in this state of transition where you're trying to figure out what your direction is going to be, who you want to work with, what you want to offer, it's not probably a good time to rebrand yet, because rebranding too early is setting you up for failure. You're just going to have to rebrand again soon. So it's important to kind of figure out the essential pieces of your offerings, who you serve, all of that, before you go through a rebrand. Now, one caveat to that is when I work with people, a lot of times I am working with them before they've kind of figured things out. And I help them figure those things out, because If you're starting from a place where you don't even have a brand strategy, you don't have, a clear sense of who you are, that's okay. Like I actually love that. I love when people come to me and they're like, I don't know who I am and what I offer. I'm like, okay, we're going to figure this out. This is a fun project for me. So it can be sometimes a good time to go through that exercise of like really mining for what is your purpose as a brand and then building your brand from that. But if someone comes to me and they're like, I'm toying with the idea of starting this business, but I don't know what it's going to look like and I don't know what it is and I need help shaping it. Sometimes I'm open to that if I have a sense of what it is that they're looking for, but a lot of times I'll tell them, take some time. Like take some time to figure out what you actually want and we'll kind of go from there. So there is a balance point. Also, if you're going through this rebrand on your own, I would say you need to have a better sense of what's going on and where you want to go as a brand before going through the actual rebrand. When else is it not time to rebrand is when you're chasing shiny objects or you've got these comparison triggers going on. So you see someone else who just redid her brand, you love her brand, and you're like, maybe that's what I need. Maybe I need to rebrand. That's not a good reason to rebrand. Really, really not. You need to be looking inward at your brand, at what you're achieving as a brand, and figure out, is it time to rebrand? Based on the 6 factors that I listed earlier, are you actually at a point where rebranding makes sense? If you're just kind of feeling this pull to rebrand because maybe you're bored of your brand or you're chasing shiny object syndrome, or you are just, feeling unclear about your direction and you're toying with things, I would not go through a rebrand process yet. One other factor to be aware of, which is a legitimate factor, is finances, right? Rebranding is not cheap. It shouldn't be cheap. If you're just going to Fiverr to get a logo, that's going to be cheap, but that's not rebranding. Going through the process of really rebranding is a process of setting a clear foundation that is going to drive everything for your brand, right? It drives your marketing, it drives your website, it drives how you talk to clients, it drives how you interact with them, everything. And it can even drive how you feel about your brand. So it's not something that you spend $10, $15, $20 on, $100 on. It's something that you need to be ready to invest in. And it's a worthwhile investment. If you're not ready to make that investment yet, that's totally fine. But then maybe that needs to be the goal. That needs to be the goal is, I know that I need to rebrand. Let me do some research, find out what that's actually going to cost to do it right and do it effectively with the person that I think is going to be the best steward of my brand. And let me make that a goal to work up to being able to afford that. That's something that's a really worthwhile exercise to go through. So if you are thinking about rebranding, you're thinking about building up that foundation in a really thoughtful way, and you're not sure how to do it, shoot me a DM. I would love to chat with you. We can have a free vibe check and just kind of see if this is right for you. And I'm happy to, again, share my process, pricing, all of that. And you can take that and decide to save up for it. Or if it's the right time, I'd love to work with you now. All right. Have a great one. All right, beautiful human, that's your bold hit of the week. Short, sharp, and straight to the point. If this helped, share it with a friend, leave a review, or DM me your biggest aha. This show was brought to you by my company, Honey Be Bold, with music by Shmukalele. Need help taking your business to the next level? Visit us at honeybebold.com, that's honeybebold.com, and set up a free vibe check with yours truly. Until next time, stay bold and always wear sunscreen.